What's up, gang? I'm going to talk about what I was listening to on Joe Rogan tonight. It's not really fight related, but whatever, I do what I want. So what happens when we die? I was listening to Rogan. I wish I knew the name of whoever I listened to. I believe it's his newest episode. The guy was a former war reporter. He's retired now, and he recently wrote a book that was like something about seeing the afterlife. The gentleman went on to tell a story. Him and his wife went to, basically they go to like a cabin in the woods to have a little vacation retreat for themselves, and as soon as he gets there, he feels a pain in his stomach. He couldn't move around, and then he knew it was something bad, and I don't remember the correct medical terms, but it's basically like he's got all these veins down your stomach. We all do, or whatever. And one of them like swells up, and then it sounded like it busts. So you've got internal bleeding, but he didn't call it internal bleeding. He called it something else. And it caused a lot of excruciating pain because like you're basically got a bunch of blood just free floating and pressing on all your organs on the inside. And basically he almost died. I keep saying basically. They had to run a catheter up through his veins to try to locate the hole, which is really challenging for a bunch of different reasons. And then they couldn't. And then they got lucky, and one of the doctors thought of switching to the other wrist. But what I want to talk about with this is during all this, and the first attempt doesn't work, and before they switch wrists or whatever, he says he's laying there, and he didn't know he didn't know how close he was to death until the next day or day or two later. He was thinking he might have a tumor, not like it's not anything bad, but he didn't know right in that moment. And he shares that he's an atheist, both before and after the event. That'll be relevant here in a moment. So while he's laying there and the first attempt fails or whatever, he basically says to the left of him, he sees like this black hole form, like an abyss or a pit. And it's not like he's physically moving, but he can feel himself being drawn towards it. And it's not like anyone's saying any words or anything. He just knows. He's like, if I go in it, there's no coming back. And then all of a sudden he sees his dad kind of above it. And he shares with us he had a good relationship with his dad. It's not like his dad was abusive and he didn't like him or anything. He loved his father. And when his father's there, his father doesn't speak, but somehow communicates with him to let him know it's okay. You can cross over. I'll take care of you. It's going to be okay. And even though he loves his father and everything, he felt offended and scared and afraid. He's like, wait, what are you doing here? You're dead. I don't want to be with you. You're dead. I want to be here with my family. I'm alive. And like, I don't know where I'm at on the religious spectrum, if that's the word, spectrum for religion, but I'm not atheist, but I'm not like actively practicing. I like to think that there is a God. I don't think I have it all figured out by any means. But when I hear this, I'm like, and the dude never says this himself, but I'm like, man, sounds like the devil is trying to suck you into hell. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about his dad, but the fact that you were offended by your dad and didn't want to, that, I don't know, that whole thing just sounds like it's the negative side. So maybe he dodged going to hell there. I don't know. But they got me, and they get to talking about different things that it's like they had this one man died. I don't remember the whole situation. It was like they had these things on his brain monitoring it, and they didn't intentionally monitor this to see what happened when he died. It just played out this way, and it was like he was on life support, and I think the family didn't want to take him off life support, and he died anyways. And he had these things on his brain. I think that's how it happened. Because the guy being interviewed with Rogan, he says, he's like, it's not like we put these things on his brain and then pulled the plug to see what happened. He's like, we didn't do anything unethical. And it wasn't even him. He was just talking about a study. But it showed a bunch of brain activity, and he said it was like a bunch of gamma shoots up to the brain, which is affiliated with long-term memory. And he's like, that's why you see all these long-term things, or maybe your life flashes before your eyes. But and then they talked about how Joe ends up crying. I don't know if I had ever seen Joe get emotional like that, but Joe ends up talking about his grandpa and how he was close with his grandpa. When his grandpa passed, he was at the funeral, and I've been to a lot of funerals. And he said when he was looking at his grandpa's body, he's like, he just knew he wasn't there. And that was the first time Joe started thinking about maybe there is a soul. And that's a whole different story. It was like Joe came up religious, then he got anti-religious, and because of trauma or whatever. And so I just want to share some personal insight or thoughts. I just like talking. So when I would have had to been 11 or 12. My stepmom was a nurse, like an RN, and I would go volunteer at the hospital on the weekend. She would work the night shift too. That's what was going on at that time. And I'd go and I didn't really do anything. I really just hung out and watched TV, and I would take out trash and stuff. I was a kid, and I don't know. I was a good kid, so it's not like I caused any problems. Well, as I'm taking out trash or seeing if people need anything, I then start making friends with patients. I kept pausing because I was like, what do I call these people? They're not customers, they're patients. All right, so I make friends with several, and some of it's hard. Some of those people are in really bad shape, but I make friends with this one lady, and I don't remember why she was in there. She didn't seem in bad shape, and I don't remember if I ever asked her anything. I wouldn't have asked her, but my mom or anything. But anyways, we're gonna call her Miss Rose, and she I don't really remember what I got to know about her. She was just kind of like a grandma figure. She was real sweet. So it's like when I'd take her trash out or bring her ice cream, I'd hang out with her a little longer because she'd have stuff to talk about. She was probably asking me how school was and stuff, 9/11 happens. So I'm there one weekend talking to Rose and everything, normal weekend. Then 9/11 occurs. And then the next weekend, it could have been a weekend after that. I don't know. I get up there and Miss Rose she's not there anymore. And I asked my mom about her. And my mom, I got to kind of pay attention to these lights for just a second. All right. So I asked my mom about her. I'm like, hey, where's Miss Rose? And my mom lets me know that she passed. And I probably asked what happened or something. Yeah, that's probably just what happened. My mom then goes on to tell me more about the situation. And she tells me that when 9/11 happened, she called one of the nurses into the room. It was like, hey, I need to call my kids. Cell phones didn't exist back then, guys. We didn't have cell phones. She's like, I need to call my kids. I want them to come up here and see them. I want to say my goodbyes. I've seen everything I want to see in this world. Now, if you're alive during 9/11, that day was really, really crazy. A bunch of gas stations ran out of gas. Y'all might not believe this, but gas was $3 a gallon back then. And then they jacked it up to $5 on 9/11 because all these stations were running out of gas. It's supposed to be illegal, but what do you do in the chaos of a moment? It's not like you can call the cops when everyone's racing for gas. What are the cops going to do? Well, anyways, believe she had 3 children. 2 of them made it up there where she talked to them, and one of them was unable because everywhere in Little Rock ran out of gas and he couldn't get gas, something like that. But she talked to him on the phone, from my understanding. And then once everybody left her, everything, she like asked the nurse, just let me go to sleep. This is gonna be the end. And then when they came back to check on her an hour later or whatever it was, she was gone. So I could give a lot more personal stories. Maybe one day, if this channel takes off, I'll talk a little bit more about the stuff I've seen. But I'll share this. My dad was 55 when he had me. So like that side of my family, like everybody was old, and I had to see a lot of death growing up. And he was from a big family from a different generation, you know what I mean? Like lived through World War II. I feel like, I guess this is kind of just general talking. I feel like when we die, you have this choice of letting go. Just like the guy was referencing on Joe Rogan, he could feel himself being pulled. And you'll hear this in a lot of stories about near-death experiences, whether it's the light. This was the first one I heard of it being a dark pit. The guy on Joe Rogan, that's the first time I've heard of it being a dark pit getting pulled into. He had a choice, though. He had a way to still fight. And it leaves me to wonder, like, do we all hit a point where we don't want to fight anymore? And that's kind of depressing. Now, obviously, freak of nature, accidents could happen. Something could fly through the windshield and hit me and kill me right now, and we can't prevent stuff like that. But, like, I get to wondering a lot, like, how often it is someone just gives up. They don't want to do it anymore. And then that whole idea of your life flashing before your eyes. So like, so one of my grandmas, she ended up with dementia, and she would tell stories that weren't true, and she would see things that weren't there. And that was a really heartbreaking experience to go through, to be honest with you. Something positive I can say about that, I'll just share some advice with you guys. If you're ever around someone with dementia, even if it's they're developing it, even if it's like your grandma or your mom or your dad, someone you've known forever, you have to be careful. There's a real instability where people can get violent and mean when they have dementia, and whatever relationship you have isn't there anymore. It made me feel good that never happened with me and my dad. She always recognized me and she always recognized my dad. But I saw her be mean to other people, and sometimes I look back on it and it's like, you know how you have to tolerate people even though they're doing crappy things? I felt like I saw all the toleration end. Like, it's like all those times we turned the other cheek, it's like that dementia made it where she won it. So she would be fucking mean to people who had done, even if they were little things, but had done stuff wrong and I wouldn't say they were bad people, but I mean, it was mean. But I wonder, so for example, sorry, I'm kind of rambling. I mentioned how she tells stories or see things. It's like she's telling me the story about a cat being in this room and there's no cat there, and there's a bunch of situations like that. And I wonder if your life flashes before your eyes, in our mental state, if you now have dementia, are you seeing your life, or are you seeing a bunch of imaginary stuff that wasn't there? I don't know. This got way too depressing, and I'm at 15 minutes, so I'm going to stop this now. We'll see if I even upload this. I guess I was just talking about what happens if you die, doing a little Joe Rogan recap. What do y'all think? I don't know.